Welcome to Module 2. This module is extremely important, and the reason why is because what we're going to do together right now is we're going to do something that is probably the most important thing you can do long-term for your business. I know long-term is not really a very exciting phrase because we all want to do something now to make money right now in the short term, and you can do that with this method as well, but what I'm going to show you will have lasting, profitable effects on your business, and that is quite simply to create your mass control character and storyline. Now, when I use the phrase character and storyline, I don't want to imply that you're making anything up, right? That you invent some sort of a fictitious presence or whatever. At least that's not how I do it in my business. I find that that would be extremely demanding and difficult. Instead, what I like you to do is to find the characteristics of yourself that match your market's desired outcome and really blow those up. So I'll give you some examples, all right? If I'm selling to a beginner market, people who want to, like a business opportunity market, people whose main outcome is to really make as much money as possible by doing as little work as humanly possible, I might tell my underachiever story. And that is, I would play up on my own laziness, which is regrettably to an extent pretty true. I am a fairly lazy guy. I would play up on my own laziness. So I would create, or not really necessarily create, but embellish this character of a lazy slacker person. So that would be my character, and my storyline would be about how I lost everything in a flood in 1994, how I hated working, and how I turned to the internet, specifically selling information products on the internet, to make as much money as possible while doing nothing. And now, oftentimes, I'll wake up, check my orders, and find out I brought in $20,000, $30,000 in income overnight. Now, all of that is true, incidentally, but I'm telling the proper story to the segment of the market that I'm trying to communicate with, matched on their desired outcome. I hope that makes sense to you. So if people want to make money for doing nothing, I'm telling them a true story using my lazy slacker character, which is embellished yet still true because I am pretty lazy and fairly slack, and matching their outcome to the story that I'm telling. So I'm going to go into pretty substantial detail on how you do this yourself in this upcoming video. But before I do, I want to tell you that there are 5 basic building blocks for creating a character. And here they are. The first one is your backstory. And this is what people would call your origination story. And that's really hard for me to say, origination. I don't know why, but maybe it's easier for you. Either way, your backstory, origination story, your history. So how you got here, why you're here, basically. So I have multiple backstories, right? So again, to reference the teaching to the very beginners markets, my origination story is I used to be a door-to-door salesman. I lost all the money I had and all my possessions in a flood in 1994. I hated working, which I still don't really care to work that much. I discovered the internet. I discovered information marketing. I got good at it. Next thing you know, I'm making lots of money and I spend most of my time surfing, all right? So that's one little oversimplified origination story to serve that market, okay? The second building block you have is what you stand for, your beliefs and values, okay? And this is, I'm not trying to get really heavy on you, but it's important that you identify the beliefs and values that your market has and that you legitimately and honestly have the same beliefs and values as them. And when I say this, I'm not really talking in terms of like, I believe in the vigilant protection of freedom and truth and democracy. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Obviously, all those things are good. But I don't mean like beliefs and values in terms of really heavy stuff. Okay, I mean like simple, digestible, chunk-size beliefs and values that people can relate to and readily agree with. For example, in my general overall marketing persona, I stand for lots of money, little work. Okay, that's easy. So if people were to be like, who's the make money, no work guy? My market would easily identify me. They go, oh, that's Current, right? He's the make money, no work guy. He's always talking about, here's how you make a lot of money and work as little as humanly possible, right? So you need to have that same immediate identifiable association in your market. So that's the second building block for your story and your character, right? The third one would be your magic powers, right? That's what I call them, your magic powers. So every good character has magic powers, okay? So again, to relate to myself, like I might say my magic powers in terms of mass control, if I'm trying to sell that, my magic power is the ability to create offers that sell tremendous amounts of products, make lots of money without actually having to really use any sort of high pressure sales tactics at all. That's one of my magic powers, right? Another way to phrase that would be I have the ability to have people beg me to sell them things without me actually having to sell anything deliberately at all. Okay, so that's a magic power. John Carlton's magic power would be the ability to write sales copy really quickly and easily that pulls in millions of dollars in orders. That's his magic power. Okay, so everyone has a magic power, a main thing that they can do, right? That causes people to be attracted to them and interested in them. All right, so, and by the way, incidentally, if you consider yourself to be like boring and to not have any magic powers, that in and of itself can be a magic power. So if you are like a CPA and you're incredibly boring, yet you're really good at taxes, your magic power could be that you prepare taxes faster than anybody on the planet, despite the fact that you're so boring you put IRS auditors to sleep and in a coma, and therefore all of your clients are bulletproof forever, or something like that, okay? So no matter what you may think, you definitely have magic powers. So I'm going to show you how to identify them. The fourth building block are your fables, all right? Your stories. So every good speaker, if you'll recall all of the good marketing presentations that you've ever watched, all of the personal development tapes that you've ever listened to, everybody's always got some fables that they tell, right? That's a story that from beginning to end can be packaged up and delivered as a very subtle selling device. So you might have heard my parrot story, where I tell the story of I used to have a business called Cash Flow Circle. There was a customer who said, "Frank, you're full of shit. You don't know how to sell anything except for make money products." I said to myself, this guy's got a point. I listened to some Jeff Paul tapes. On that Jeff Paul tape, there was a guy talking about how he had a business selling manuals on how to teach your parrot how to talk through the mail. So I said, by gosh, if someone could sell this sort of thing through the mail, I could probably sell it on the internet. I hired a ghostwriter to make a parrot talking book for me. I placed some Google AdWords ads, threw up a sales letter. Next thing you knew, I had some money coming in the bank. I said, you know what, if I can do this with one website, I could probably do this with several hundred websites, and bam, the underachiever method was born. Now that was a very condensed version of that story, but that's a fable. That's a true story, but it's a fable outlining the importance and ease of niche marketing right there. So that's what I mean with fables, okay? And I'm going to go into greater detail for you in this next video. The fifth building block is your secret language, all right? So secret languages are used, really, if you think about it, in cults, but also in like fraternities and closely knit groups of friends, but it's also used a lot in niche markets. The case in history, I guess, in my life where I really got this was when I was working with Neil Strauss. Before I even started working with Neil Strauss, when I was reading his book, The Game, and all the pickup artist guys, they all had the secret language, right? Like all this stuff that they would say that no one knew what the hell they were talking about except them. For example, AFC, they would say that guy's just an AFC. It stands for average frustrated chump in the pickup artist language. They would refer to another person as a PUA, which is P-U-A, which stands for pickup artist. They would say that guy's got a really bad case of one-itis, which means that a man was hung up on one particular woman that he couldn't get, or maybe had already been with, who was in a relationship and had him unhappy for whatever reasons, right? And they had all these little terms, a secret language that they could have this whole conversation. No one with them knew what the hell they were talking about. You need to develop that in your market. And if you think about it, our market has it, right? So we talk about click-through rates, right? We talk about open rate. We talk about PPC, CPA. If we sat down at a cocktail party with a bunch of tire mechanics, is there such thing as a tire mechanic, tire salesman, whatever, normal people, and started talking about that stuff, they'd have no clue what we were talking about. They would think we were talking about, or they would think we were talking in a, say it with me, secret language. So that's the fifth building block of creating your character and working towards creating your storyline. So I know this has been a particularly long introduction, but I really want you to get this, because if you understand it, you'll do it, right? And it's vitally important that you do this. It will make you a fortune if done correctly. Almost forgot. How could I forget this? Homework. Yes. So after you watch this video, and you'll notice this in your manual, there's a homework assignment. And it's important, vitally important, that you do the homework assignment after you watch this section, please. Okay? So do it, I'm not going to nag you about it anymore, but it's critical that you do it. It's easy and it's fun. If you try to do it before watching this next section of the video, it's totally going to suck and you're not going to have any fun. If you watch this next little section of the video, doing your homework will be easy and very profitable for you. All right, now let's get started.
So now it's time to start getting to the key to mass control. And the key to the effectiveness of this whole thing is your character and your storyline. So once we use mass control money magnets to gain the interest and desire from the market, they start paying attention to you and they join your list. And this is when the real mass control really starts to take effect. And what you want to do is you rope them in with this character of who you are and then the storyline about how you came to be. So one thing you're going to need to grasp and get used to is that you are going to be the leader. You are the guru now. In mass control, you are the person that they all look to and they all follow. And you don't have to come right out and say, listen, I'm the greatest and I'm the guru and so forth. There are different storylines we can use to convey that message. However, that's the simple fact. And it really shouldn't freak you out at all because we're all inherently prone to follow a leader. We're literally programmed from birth through years and years and years of generations of human development to believe in heroes and gurus and even savior. I mean, look at modern religion and past religions. Not to make any kind of comment pro or con on religion, but that's the way it is. You know, we're all completely, totally indoctrinated to at least accept the belief that it's okay to have heroes, leaders, gurus, and or saviors. And the fact is, your market is going to follow somebody. So it might as well be you. Dan Kennedy quotes somebody, and I can't remember who he quotes, but it's somebody else's quote, and it says people are walking around with their umbilical cords hanging out looking for a place to plug them in. Well, that's true. And in your market, they're going to plug their umbilical cords into somebody, so they might as well be plugging those umbilical cords into you. So let's have a look at the way human nature works in relation to this whole thing. People follow you. And by follow, I mean they pay attention to you because they get addicted to your character. And it's not necessarily because of the content. Now, they might join your list because of the content at first. They might read the interest and desire magnet or watch a video or hear a teleconference with you on it or whatever and come into the flock, so to speak, because of the content that they're after. But eventually, they become addicted to this character you've created. They want to find out what happens next. And the fact is that we remember and relate to characters better than anything else. And you might have heard me do this little test before, but we'll do a quick 5-second test, all right? So 5 seconds, name 3 things you learned in college. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now name 3 characters from Seinfeld. 1, 2, you're done, aren't you? You've already named 3 characters from Seinfeld. George, Elaine, Jerry, Kramer, Newman, Soup Nazi. You know, you could do it for hours, right? Just immediately remembering all the characters that were in that TV show. But isn't that a little bit hard to name 3 things you learned in college, even though you paid possibly up to hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to college if you in fact went? I was enrolled technically, although I never really went personally. So therefore, this was a really easy one for me. I just immediately remembered the Seinfeld things. But the fact is, everybody remembers characters, and everybody relates to characters. And stories and characters are what keep people eagerly waiting for your next installment. This is what makes people want to open your email. This is what makes people want to watch your video. They want to keep up with you. They want to keep up and follow what's going on with you and what new discoveries you've made and how it relates to them and so forth. So here's your mission. You need to create and use a character and create and use stories to create a sense of relationship with your herd. And this is critical. This relationship that you create with them allows them to feel like they know you already. You will be perceived almost as a long-lost friend. I can't tell you how many times I have been approached by complete strangers in seminar environments where they say, man, I've seen your videos, I'm on your list, I feel like I've known you for years. Well, that's not an accident. Okay, I do that intentionally. I try to engineer that emotion in my list because I want them to know, like, and trust me, and I want them to have a bond with me. So when it's time for me to sell them something I believe will be of value to them, I have a much easier time of conveying its importance to them. And you can have the exact same effect. It's really pretty simple. And of course, you want them to feel like you're their friend, and like you and them are friends, like I just said, even though you've never personally met them. So the way we do this, again, is through characters and stories. So what is a character? All right. Well, a good character is someone who is immediately recognizable, and he stands for something, and he represents a belief. All right. And he also has a backstory that's immediately recognizable. And I'm saying he, this could be she as well. It's just easier for me to say he in this particular example. And a character, a good character, actually has building blocks upon which the whole basis of the character is built. So I said earlier that a good character has a backstory or a legend. That's kind of like the origin story of how this character came to be, you know. They have beliefs and values, also known as what you stand for, all right? They have magic powers, which is what I use this term somewhat jokingly, but the magic power is the whole reason that you're around anyway, the reason people pay attention to you. So in marketing, like I would have the magic power of creating wildly successful niche businesses or doing giant launches or whatever. That's an example of magic powers. Fables, which are going to be stories about the character or stories that the character tells that convey the backstory, the beliefs and values and the magic powers, and convey the overall message. And ideally you want to have a series of stories you can tell that get your point across and make people bond with you. And then of course the character speaks the same secret language that the market speaks. So I'll break all these down for you. First, let me give you some real backstory examples, and these are taken directly from the internet marketing niche. So if you've been around for a while in the internet marketing niche, you'll recognize these. I'll give you the backstory, and I'll have a little blank by them, and then you can just guess along with me here who we're talking about. All right. So here's the backstory number one: $1 Million Day. Who is that? John Reese. Right. Underground secret agent. Who's that? Yannick Silver, right? He's got his whole Internet Underground seminar thing going on. He's had that for now almost 4 years in a row. How about the Tubby Nerd, or more accurately, the Tubby Nerd from Australia? That's Ed Dale, my co-creator of the Underachiever Method, good friend. How about this backstory? This is really more of a belief statement, but we can use it as a backstory, sort of. I'm better than you. Who's that? Rich Jerk, right? This one should be easy. Total slacker who makes money. That's me. That's my backstory. So those are real life examples of just immediately recognizable backstory from our own subculture that you and I are a part of with this whole marketing world. And we could go on, right? And we could identify other backstories for other lovable and not so lovable characters within our little niche. So the second building block here is your beliefs and values and what you stand for. So let me give you a very easily recognizable example of this. Superman, right? Truth, justice, and the American way. Like that's just immediately, you just know that about Superman. If I were to say truth, justice, and the American way without saying Superman, you would say, ah, yes, Superman. Unless, of course, you don't pay attention to comic books or like maybe you were born yesterday or something. But most people would immediately recognize that, right? So in my dog training niche, my Dean Rankin character, which is just the pen name I use for my dog training business, the primary belief and what Dean Rankin stands for is positive reinforcement. I'm the positive training reinforcement guy. My belief and core value that I represent as the character is positive reinforcement good, negative reinforcement bad, right? So then if you take me personally and you take the core value or belief and what I've stood for so many years in the past, specifically when I was selling niche marketing stuff and beginner stuff, is that lazy is good and making money is easy. So if you look, for example, at my entire underachiever career, it was all about being lazy but still making money. It was all about, oh, well, you don't need to have a big, giant, successful business. You can just be lazy and build like 10 or 12 moderately successful, semi-slack businesses, and those will take care of you. That was the whole premise. Lazy is good. Making money is easy. Okay? So now let's talk about the third component, which is your magic powers. Now, here's something, as I said earlier, your magic powers are kind of like your unique ability. You know, so like for me in this mass control thing, like my unique ability is that I have this incredible ability to do giant launches, right? That's my magic power. Now, yours obviously will be different depending on what your market is. And here's what's key to remember about this, is that your magic powers must relate to the desired outcome of your herd. And when I say herd, I mean your subscriber base or market or whatever. And that's not meant to be derogatory at all. It just sounds kind of cooler than subscribers. So, for example, with the mass control thing I just gave you, where my magic power for mass control is I'm able to engineer these big launches that do multi-millions of dollars and often hours, well, that magic power it relates directly to the desired outcome of the people who are paying attention to me in regards to mass control, right? Well, they want to do the same thing. So if I have that magic power, that's the magic power they want, okay? So that's what I mean by that statement. Now, this is obvious. I shouldn't even have to say it, but you should tell the truth in this. Like, don't invent magic powers. My use of the phrase magic power is not in any way to imply that you should make up stuff. I just use the term magic power because it's cool, and because in the prospect and reader's mind, they almost view this unique ability of yours as some kind of near magical power that's amazing. All right? And finally, if you don't have magic powers, you should borrow somebody else's. And I'll illustrate that and be a little bit more clear about it in a few minutes here. So let's delve into my own personal magic powers, because I really want to drive this home for you. My magic powers are, I did the 3 biggest launches in internet marketing history back to back. That would be the Annihilation Method, which finally beat John Reese's $1 million day, right? And then StomperNet, which was the single biggest internet marketing launch in history, and then Pipeline Profits, which was the second biggest in internet marketing history, next to StomperNet, and then third biggest, of course, would have been Neil's Annihilation Method, and then there was John's, who did his $1 million day. All right, so, and that's for now. Hopefully someone will beat me, and I wish them the best of luck. I just wanted to beat Reese. All right, so that's one magic power, right? Another magic power I might use is I created a niche business that does over $1 million a year selling cheap info products, right? That's my dog business. So those are my magic powers as they could relate to the internet marketing market and the character of Frenk Kern, who is this lazy, semi-retarded guy that somehow still makes lots of money due to these magic powers, okay? So let's example John Reese's magic powers. Well, John Reese generated over 1 billion visitors over the past decade or so. Less than that, I think. John Reese did $1 million a day with his traffic secret launch, right? So there's 2 magic powers that John Reese has. He can do $1 million a day. He can generate massive traffic. Those are his magic powers. Here's Brad Fallon's magic powers as they relate to StomperNet. Brad Fallon has a wedding favors business that does $1 million a month. Most of his traffic is free. Therefore, Brad's magic powers are $1 million a month free traffic. Okay? So if we take it out of the internet marketing realm and we go into my own niche marketing business where I write under the pen name Dean Rankin, here are my magic powers for that. Dean Rankin gets dogs to behave without hitting, yelling, or scolding. Dean is not a pro trainer, but still gets amazing results. So magic powers are regular guy gets fast results in a weird way. You know, no hitting, yelling, or scolding. Now, remember when I told you that if you don't have any magic powers, or if you don't believe you have any magic powers, you could borrow magic powers from someone else? Well, here's what I mean by that. If you don't have the magic powers, focus on results that similar products have gotten, okay? And don't claim them as your own. You want to acknowledge the source. So you want to let the prospect's brain make the implicit link between you and the other product as well. So what I'd like to do now is I want to go to the internet and actually show you how you can do this, and I'll give you a concrete example of it. So let's go to the internet right now and I'll walk you through it. So here we are back on the internet at the handy dandy mind map thanks to bubble.us, and what you see here before you will make sense a little bit better in just a second. But let's say that I'm selling a product about the pH diet, also known as the alkaline diet. This is a lifestyle diet that involves you trying to eat foods that are more alkaline than acidic, and the general premise is if you keep your body in a more alkaline state, then it's almost physically impossible to get sick or be overweight. And there's a lot of validity to that whole argument, by the way. But me, personally, I'm not a physician, and I don't actually practice the alkaline diet, and therefore I wouldn't really have any magic powers in relation to this product or in relation to the pH diet or the alkaline diet. So I'm going to have to borrow magic powers from the pH diet itself, from the product, and I'm also going to have to borrow testimonials from other people. So I'm going to assume that if you're in a market, then you know at least something about it, right? So if I were in the pH diet, then I would know that it was popularized by a doctor named Dr. Robert Young. And I would know that he had lots of testimonials, and I could have done just a little bit of research, and I would have known that the pH diet itself, as well as Dr. Young, had some media attention, both from ABC News and Medical News Today. So let me just show you how I've gone about finding that out. It's very simple. First thing I want to do in establishing credibility is find out what the media has to say about my stuff. Now, of course, they can't really say anything about me because I'm unknown in the pH world, so to speak, but I can, of course, check out alkaline diet in the news at google.com. So when I do so, I see some stuff right here at the top that doesn't really look like it's going to do a lot of good for me, but here medicalnewstoday.com has got an article about it right here at the third result. So when I click on that, I see that the alkaline diet can combat the effects of acid reflux. So, if I wanted to borrow the magic powers here, instead of talking about how great I am, I would simply talk about how great the product is, or specifically about the methodology behind the product, and I would talk about how it's been proven to get the desired results. I could say, some people say the pH ballot is a miracle cure. As a matter of fact, Medical News Today just ran an article saying it could combat the effects of acid reflux. So why spend hundreds of dollars and possibly get surgery on, potentially harmful medications when this simple lifestyle change could rid you of the miserable symptoms of acid reflux for the rest of your life. Right? So that's one little example, and I'll just hit my back button down here, and I'm looking around on the first page. I don't see much. I'm going to go to the second page here of Google, and let's see what other sort of good stuff I might find. Here we go. foxnews.com. Controlling the symptoms of menopause. So, again, I don't have any magical powers personally in the realm of the pH diet. However, the pH diet itself has plenty of magic powers, so I can back up those magic powers. Oops, sorry about that. There we go. I can back up those magic powers by, again, what is said in the media. In this case, here's an article talking about menopause, and here it says pH levels and keeping your body more alkaline can help relieve those symptoms. So that's great. Now, I said earlier that Dr. Robert Young is one person who has popularized the pH diet. He has a book out called pH Miracle, which is excellent, by the way. So I can just look and borrow magic powers from him. So I wouldn't want to in any way at all try to take any credit or insinuate that these testimonials are my own, but I could say something like, I'm just a regular guy who lives in California, but I used to be in horrible shape, and now I feel so much better, and it's because of this pH Miracle diet. As a matter of fact, I first heard about it through a man named Robert Young, and some of his clients had these incredible results, right? And I could potentially use this testimony right here, and I could say, for example, one of Dr. Young's clients, a man named Bill Mitchell, suffered from diabetes for years, but once he changed his diet and followed this incredible technique, he lost 37 pounds and no longer has to take any drugs. Prescription drugs, that is. Who knows if he takes any recreational drugs? I have no idea, right? That's a silly joke. And then I could also borrow this one. So I just clicked on testimonials from the side, and I could say another person whose life was dramatically changed by this incredible lifestyle diet is a patient named Elaine Boyston. She's a patient of Dr. Young's, and she lost 50 pounds in the first 12 weeks on this program, and she was rid of her debilitating health conditions from that point forward. So that's how you can borrow the magic powers. If you don't have any results personally, you can focus on results that other people have gotten as long as you give them credit. And then your job at this point is, since, of course, one could say hypothetically, if I were selling this pH product, which I'm not, but you could say, well, this person, you're competing with Dr. Young, so what are you going to do? And I would then establish myself as a character that they want to follow instead of Dr. Young. I wouldn't want to sell against him directly because I think that would be bad form, but I would say something like, and I'd love to walk you through the process that took me from being horribly out of shape and in terrible condition to the picture of living health thanks to this incredible diet. Just like that. So it's really pretty easy. So even if you don't have magic powers, it's possible to borrow them from someone else. Again, I can't tell you how important it is to give credit where credit's due, though. Never lie and never ever try to take credit for someone else's work. You'll notice when I was giving this example, I mentioned Dr. Young. I said he had a client named Elaine Boylston. right? He had a patient, the other guy with diabetes. I said that person was also a patient of Dr. Young's. I even talked about how I learned originally from Dr. Young. That's perfectly okay. And to give you a real life example, if you go back in some of the old school direct response marketing stuff and you look at Jeff Paul's original How to Make Money in Your Underwear course, you'll notice that his entire pitch for that is about how he used to be a loser until he discovered Dan Kennedy's magic powers. So he doesn't even talk about his own magic powers in that original promotion. He talks about how he discovered Dan Kennedy's magic powers, and those magic powers changed his life. So that's a classic example of borrowing magic powers right there. So that's how you do that. Now, let's move forward. So the next step here in building your character is the use of fables and parables. Now, these fables and parables are where you repeatedly tell true stories that reinforce what you're all about. So these are true stories that reinforce your character's identity, and they're true stories that reinforce your core values, and they're true stories about that reinforce your magic powers, which of course are matching the desired end result that your market has. And a classic example of this is the Bible. Okay, so if we have the overall premise that Jesus is amazing, for example, all right, in the Bible, well, there are fables and parables in there that illustrate that. For example, Jesus turned water into wine. Jesus was born again. Okay, those are supporting the overall awesomeness of Jesus as a person throughout the Bible. Same thing with Moses, right? So if we have the statement that Moses is amazing and killer and all this kind of stuff, well, you have these stories where Moses was awesome. For example, there's a story where he parted the Red Sea. Okay, there's the other one where he turned the stick into a snake or whatever. That's all stories, parables, fables, whatever you want to call them, that are supporting that statement, supporting that whole identity surrounding Moses and Jesus. Here's another one, straight from the Bible, the belief that, or statement that sin is bad. Okay, so now you have a story within the Bible that illustrates that statement, which of course will be the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, where people sinned and that was bad and they got in lots of trouble and, bad things happened to them. I'm sure you can find many, many more similar stories throughout that publication to support that belief as well. So let's take it now to the exact opposite of the Bible here, which would be my own personal fables and parables. All right, so when I'm selling the whole idea that selling marketing stuff is bad and that selling niches or selling to niches is good, I'll use my FTC story, right? And that's the story of how I was selling marketing stuff. I got sued by the FTC, and not only was it hard as hell selling marketing stuff and hyper competitive, but then the FTC sued me, and then I discovered niche marketing, and now I make more money than ever, and I don't have to really do anything. I would tell that FTC story to support that overall statement that selling marketing is bad and selling to niches is good. If I wanted to support the belief or statement that niche marketing is easy, I would tell my parrot story, which is the story of how when I was in the guru business, a student or customer or client or whatever you want to call them, said that I was full of crap and that I only sold marketing stuff, and that therefore I didn't really know what I was talking about. So I created a little ebook about teaching your parrot to talk, and I sold that, and it was successful. That's the parrot story. And then I would go on to use that story to illustrate how easy it was to make that money and how I didn't have any pain in the ass customers to deal with, and how the parrot product created money for me month after month on autopilot. So I decided to make lots of similar products, and now I make $1 million a year selling niche marketing stuff. Okay, so if I wanted to support the statement that anybody can make money online no matter what you've been through, I might use my Infomillionaire story. And Infomillionaire, I used the story on that one telling about how I lost everything I owned in a flood back in 1994, which really happened, and how I tried and failed in many internet marketing businesses and other businesses, which is true, and then how I discovered this big magic secret and became successful on the internet, and the big magic secret is selling information products using direct response marketing. So I would tell that story. That would be my Infomillionaire story. And finally, if I wanted to support the statement that mass control is good, then I would do like I did with the whole mass control sales sequence, which is where I simply told the story of those 4 launches, being Serializer Method, the Annihilation Method launch, StomperNet, and Pipeline Profits launch, which combined did over $23.8 million over a combined period of 24 hours. So that story, that fable or parable, is true and it supports that belief. So when I use the term fable, I don't want you to think you make up stuff that's not true. I'm using that term really more to describe a story that's going to be handed down throughout the existence of this character that you're creating, and told and retold and told and retold to convey the lesson. Because if you remember the fables, like Aesop's fables and stuff, they always conveyed this lesson or this point or this belief, right? So that's why I'm using that term. So now let's look at the final piece of the puzzle, which is secret language. Well, all tribes have their own language, and we're part of a tribe or a subculture. You can use those terms interchangeably, all right? But they all have their own secret language, or at least their own language, not necessarily secret. So what happens is when you're using a secret language or using this insider language, I could say it creates a sense of insider knowledge, right? And it creates a sense of bonding and belonging. And you've probably experienced this before, so if you and someone else, let's say you're at a marketing seminar and you and a fellow marketer are talking marketing stuff, and you're using the marketing secret language, talking about OTOs and SEO and PPC and all this other crazy stuff, reverse squeeze pages, and then someone else is looking at you and they're like, I have no idea what you guys are talking about. You feel like you're part of a little secret club, right? Well, it's the same thing with anybody, with absolutely any other subculture in the world. People like to use their secret language to feel like they belong and to feel like they have a sense of bonding. So let's just take a look at our secret language as members of this whole mass control syndicate, right? Well, we have terms like money magnet. So people probably wouldn't really understand what we meant if we were discussing the money magnet outside of this little circle of mass control. Howitzer method, unified front, magic powers. Right? That's secret language as it relates directly to mass control, as it relates directly to what you and I are doing right now. So if we had discussions about all this stuff with other people, they'd have no idea what we were talking about. We'd be speaking our own secret language. So the dating market, or I guess I should say more accurately, the seduction market, has their own secret language. For example, AFC is a term they use. It stands for average frustrated chump. That is to mean guys who don't know all the secret ninja seduction strategies that they do. A PUA, P-U-A, stands for pickup artist. That's what they refer to themselves as. A pivot is a woman that you use to meet other women. And she usually plays the role of the pivot knowingly. It's not a manipulative thing that the seduction guys do to these women. It's all planned out in script. But this other person is a pivot to be introduced to even more women, as bizarre as that sounds. DLV stands for demonstration of lower value. That means something that you do which makes you look somewhat stupid in the eyes of a social circle. DHV spike is a method of telling stories repeatedly that make you come across as having higher and higher value within the social circle. So these are all secret language expressions that are used within the seduction market. So you can clearly see they're all speaking, this secret language, which is good. So these are the components of building your character. And building up this character is one of the most important things you could do. And once you have your character built, then we're going to determine the storyline that you use to convey who this character is and to get this character out there in front of everybody. And I'll talk to you about those storylines in your next video.